I'm excited to talk to you guys about something I'm sure you're very interested in, which is making more sales. How many of you are interested in making more sales by show of hands? Fantastic. So I did a little calculation. I'm a big numbers person, and I was thinking about each of you in the audience right now and the value that I can deliver. I'm going to be on stage for a little over an hour. And I want to deliver $100,000 in real value to each of you over the next just a little over an hour. So would that be a good use of your time if I could deliver information that could put an extra $100,000 in your pocket from these next 60 plus minutes? Y'all with me on that? Okay, so here's what that means. We're going to unleash, there's about 250 people in the room. So I brought out my calculator and did it on my iPhone. That's $25 million. Is that right? No, 25 million. So we're going to unleash $25 million in income for all of you to be dispersed amongst you with some very specific ideas about selling that have made a big difference for me. Josh is teaching you about generating leads, teaching you about appointment setting. And where I come in is now you've got that appointment booked. How do you structure that presentation to move the prospect to action? If you're a note taker, I'll give you some different things to jot notes down on. One is human beings respond in predictable ways. Just go ahead and jot that down in your notes. Human beings respond in predictable ways. This is why preparation of your presentation is so important. Once you get a great presentation down, you just do it over and over and over and over and over again. So we're going to put forth the effort up front to get a great presentation, and then you're going to make money off that presentation for the rest of your life. Just out of curiosity, how many of you wrote down human beings respond in predictable ways by show of hands? I knew you were going to raise your hand. I knew you were going to write it down. Jot this down in your notes. Prediction is a form of power. Prediction is a form of power. Selling is a very intentional style of communication. So one of the most important aspects about sales, it's a simple idea, and it's clarity. Clarity. You being crystal clear on the outcome that you want to produce from that presentation. Part of my sales philosophy is stage selling. Stage selling means you sell the prospect to the next step. So you get clear what's the next step that you want to take them to. Reverse engineer your presentation to produce the desired result. So you do that from the generating a lead, from what Josh is teaching you, to the booking of the appointment. And now some of you might meet with the prospect 3 times before they buy from you. Some of you meet with them once and then they buy. And then I want you to think about post-sale follow-up. And one of the ideas I learned from Jay Abraham, raise your hand if you know the name Jay Abraham. Wow, a lot of you. Fantastic. Jay is one of my mentors. And if you're taking notes, you can jot this thought down in your notes. Lifetime client map. Lifetime client map. So you get clear after they buy from you once, what's the next logical product they would buy from you? All the way through to the lifetime relationship. And so you actually map that out with sales strategy. How does the lead come in? How do you take them through the process? How do you acquire them as a client? And then ultimately, the lifetime client map. I have 9 golden nuggets to share. This is going to go very fast-paced. I wish I had 2 days with you guys. I've got a little over an hour, so I'm going to give you 9 specific ideas you guys can immediately implement. The ideas I'll cover today are things that you can use to close more sales now for the rest of your life. Because when you learn a good idea, how long can you benefit? For the rest of your life. One of the things I'll talk a little bit more in depth about later on in the presentation is success stories. So one area that many of you can improve the persuasiveness, you're layering persuasion into your presentation using success stories, because nothing sells like success. So some of you have some fantastic client success stories. You want to script out those success stories. I'll go a little deeper on that later on in the presentation. So that's something I learned 21 years ago. I'm constantly looking for ideas of what can I do for my own business? What can I teach to clients to help you make more sales. One of the most powerful, easiest ideas to implement is to layer in success stories into the body of your presentation. That's a very simple idea, but it's not intuitive. I didn't know it until my mentor, Dr. Moyne, who I'll talk about a little bit later. I didn't know about success stories until Dr. Moyne began to mentor me, and he studied it for many, many years, and he taught me that idea. So I want to share with you a little bit about my background. Prior to becoming a sales trainer, I've been training now professionally for the last 17 years. My very first job I ever had right out of high school, I made over $100,000. Would you all agree that's pretty good? First job, right out of high school, made over $100,000. Didn't make over $100,000 though. I made over 100,000 hamburgers. I was a cook at McDonald's. While I was working at McDonald's, I was attending community college, which you're supposed to go to for how many years? Supposed to go for 2. I went to community college for 5 years. I'm still a couple of units shy of my AA degree. So I was in my early 20s at that point, not exactly on the fast track to success. I was just kind of wandering aimlessly through life. I had no goals, no direction. And then I experienced a turning point. And my turning point happened when I attended a class very similar to this class that you're in right now. I literally took a day off of my job at McDonald's, and I attended a class like this, and the speaker said the exact message that I needed to hear. Have you ever had that happen before? Listen to a speaker, and it was like they were talking directly to you. And he shared the exact message that I needed to hear. And I became so inspired by his message, I went to work for him. He's a very successful real estate investor, a multimillionaire named Dante Pirano. And when I went to work for him, it was kind of like the show The Apprentice. So I quit my job at McDonald's to go work for this multimillionaire to become his assistant. And when I wasn't his assistant, I had to do something else for him because the assistant job was part-time. I said, "What do you want me to do?" And he said, "Sales." So that's how I got my start in sales. This is a photo of me at my first sales job. I was very stylish back then, as you could tell from this photo. Had my purple pants and my matching plaid socks. And at this company, I was the bottom producer. At the end of my first year, in addition to being the bottom producer, I missed quota 2 months in a row. And we had a 3 strikes and you're out rule. So I had 1 more month to hit my quota. So if any of you here have ever struggled in sales before, or if you're struggling in sales right now, I want you to know that I understand. I'm not a naturally born sales superstar. I didn't excel in selling until after I was professionally trained. So how many of you here in this room, you're like me, you're not a naturally born sales superstar, just out of curiosity? Yeah, the majority of you. And the good news is, with proper strategy, with proper scripting, with proper mindset, with proper training, you can go to a whole new level. Because what I learned after I got trained, if you're taking notes, you can jot this phrase in your notes. Selling is a learned skill. Selling is a learned skill. Business is a learned skill. It's one of the great things about what Josh has to share, what I'm sharing with you right now. These are skill sets that you can choose to strengthen. And when you strengthen them, it creates predictability and increases in your business. So I'm about to get fired from this job. I start looking for answers, and I meet this individual. This is Dr. Donald Moyne. Now, a lot of you know the name Jay Abraham. This is Jay Abraham's sales coach. That's who Dr. Moyne is, okay? Dr. Moyne, from my view, is the most brilliant sales mind living today. I affectionately call him the Obi-Wan Kenobi of sales training. If you remember Obi-Wan from Star Wars. So I'm about to get fired from my job, and Obi-Wan shows up in my life. So as you could probably imagine, my results went up. The quota was $10,000 in gross sales. With Dr. Moyne's help, I do $10,500 in gross sales. That means I made quota by 1 sale. The following month, I did $51,000. I went from worst to first in 60 days, and I've never looked back. I've gone on to do millions and millions of dollars in sales. And what I learned from that experience is that selling is a learned skill. It's kind of like this. If I gave all of you a bike lock, every one of you, it was a combination lock, and every one of you, imagine you've got a bike lock in front of you, and I said, open the bike lock. Without the combination, you wouldn't be able to do it. I would raise the stakes and say, I'll give you $10,000 if by the end of my presentation you can open up the bike lock. And you'd try and try and try, but you still wouldn't be able to do it. But if I gave you the combination, how many times does it take you to open up the bike lock? 1. So a bike lock is not intuitive, but it's easy once you have the combination. My experience of sales, unless you're a naturally born sales superstar, which I'm not, is that selling is not intuitive, but it's easy. And I want you just to sit with that thought, because that's kind of a radical thought for some of you. The idea that selling could be easy. But what I experienced with Dr. Moyne is once I understood step by step, how do you structure an effective presentation? How do you tell a story? How do you craft a close? How do you ask the right probing questions? One of the 5 most important words in sales, and we'll talk a little bit about this, but you might jot it in your notes. One of the 5 most important words in sales, is true in marketing too, is the word sequencing. Sequencing is the order that the presentation goes in. When you think about this concept of lifetime client map, and you think of all the purchases that somebody would make from you, your business, your company, over a lifetime, and you map that out of what is the message I would send to them to get them to go to the next step. And you just keep selling them to the next step. But this is a huge idea. It's probably far bigger than the 100,000 I promised at the beginning of the session. If you really got clear on the lifetime client map and you mapped out a sales strategy to maximize those sales, that could be a huge game changer. A huge game changer in your business. So I want to talk to you about associations. Have you ever heard the concept you'll rise to the level of your peer group? You become like the people you hang out with? So I just got a little funny quick thing to share with you guys about that. So this photo is my brother. His hair's like that. This is a photo of him in his early 20s. It's like that not by choice. He has a receding hairline. So this to my son, this is my brother. So to my son, who's this? This is Uncle. It's Uncle Andrew. And Uncle Andrew is cool because he'll play video games with my son, which is the language of, a 10-year-old. And so my son likes his Uncle Andrew, and we're getting his hair cut one day. And I'm out in the lobby at the haircutting place, and he's sitting in the barber stool, and the woman yells over to me, "How do you want me to cut his hair?" And I said, "He's old enough to make that decision. Why don't you ask him?" That's called a zero cut. If you go to the barber, they have numbers for how short if they're using the cutter, whatever they call them. That's called the zero cut. So my son got his hair cut that way because he was influenced through his associations. This is why mentoring is so important. This is why you being in the room right now is so important. Because you're around Josh and his team and the experts like myself that he's assembled to create association with all of you that are in the group here and then all the speakers to really have a mastermind experience. Even though I'm speaking to a group of you, you and I are having a mastermind experience right now because I'm sharing ideas and it's blending with your mind and you're thinking about what you know about sales and your experience and then my ideas, and it's going to open up new ways of thinking for you. So your associations are very, very important. And that's why I associate with people like Anthony Robbins, who I worked for 3 years prior to starting my current company, Lofholm International. Jay Abraham, who I haven't just gone to his programs. This is Jay speaking at one of my seminars. So I had Jay come out and speak at my event. This is another one of my mentors here, Les Brown, speaking again at one of my events. So associations are very, very important. This is a photo of my family. I live up in Rockland, California, which is just outside of Sacramento. That's part of what drives me in my business. So I have time with my family, and I can provide a great lifestyle for my family. I know that family is really important to you guys as well. All right, let's dive into our training. Are you running enough presentations? Are you running enough presentations? Is there room for improvement for you in your sales presentation? So let me just quick show of hands. How many of you recognize there is room for improvement for you in your sales presentation by a show of hands? Okay, I want you just to sit with this for just a second. Because typically in a business, we might have 1 to 5 key presentations that we're delivering. And I want to plant a seed of greatness for you right now. And that seed of greatness is simply this, that you're going to put forth the upfront time to get down those 1 to 5 presentations. And once you have it down and you put together the most persuasive presentation possible, you can just deliver it over and over and over again, okay? How many of you does that make sense to? You get your 1 to 5 presentations down, you just do it over and over and over again, okay? Here's the thing. How about anybody in this room other than me, you get into overwhelm at times. You get into overwhelm, okay? I do too. So now I just put something on your plate. And that's to put time into your presentation. And it's going to take you effort to put time into that presentation, okay? How do you fit that into your already full plate? And I'm going to give you the mindset of a high-performing business owner. So I want to share with you how my observation of how people like Josh think to get done all the stuff that they get done. What they do, they're busy just like you and I. They have their plate full too. But what they're great at is prioritizing. And so they let go of the lower producing activities and they replace them with higher producing activities. And here's the question for your notes. What is going to move the needle for me in my business? What is going to move the needle for me in my business? And so you identify what's going to move the needle. Here's what I'm here to suggest. You getting down these 1 to 5 scripts, that's a move the needle thing. And it produces leverage for you because once it's done, it's done. And I want to give you a thought. This is one of the concepts of how I think in my business is the idea of a deliverable. A deliverable is once it's done, it's done. So you put together an email autoresponder sequence. In my world, that's a deliverable. You write a book. That's a deliverable. Once it's done, it's done. And a sales script is a deliverable that produces leverage. A sales script is a deliverable that produces leverage. Do any of you, just out of curiosity, have a sales team? Anybody have a sales team? Okay, a couple of you have a sales team, okay? Those of you that have sales teams, the leverage is even greater. Let's say you had 5 people on your sales team, and you get these 1 to 5 winning scripts down, and then you have everybody on your sales team trained on the most powerful, persuasive way to communicate the presentation. Are you making enough prospecting calls or touches? All right? This is just a little honesty thing. How many of you recognize, I need to be doing a little bit more time on my prospecting, just out of curiosity? Okay? All right? So that's a decision you might make today. So you know what? I'm going to step up, and I'm going to get that fixed. That could be a move the needle activity for you. And the last quick question here, are you following up at the level that you need to? I'm going to go through these slides really quickly here. What type of results are you capable of if you make enough prospecting calls? So imagine you fix that if you need help on that. You're running enough appointments, you're now consistent, and you have a great sales presentation. So imagine you now have that. What types of results are you capable of? How much more income do you believe that you could make on a monthly basis if you got all of those things fixed? And I want to just plant a seed for you. My thought for you is for you to perform at your highest potential in selling. And I want you to be thinking about that. Thinking about your highest potential as a human being in business, in sales, in lead generation. Thinking about your highest potential. Why learn sales? This is one way of thinking about sales. And let me ask you this. How many of you have some resistance to selling? Anybody have resistance to sales? Right? If we're honest, a lot of you have resistance to sales. Would you agree with me that there's a stigma to sales in our culture? That's right. There's a stigma to sales in our culture. So here you are in business, and you want to become more successful, but a lot of people have resistance to sales. And if you have resistance to sales, it's not your fault because our culture programmed you to think that way. But I want you to think about this. Here's the game. The game is for you to perform at your highest business potential. And I'm going to give you 2 mindsets. One mindset is you resist sales. The other mindset is you embrace sales. Between those 2 mindsets, which one will help you achieve your ultimate potential in business? Resisting sales or embracing sales? What do you think? Embracing sales. But that creates a problem. How do I embrace sales if I've been trained my whole life to resist it? Even deep on an unconscious level. So I want to help undo that for some of you right now. If you're ready to just let go of that, I want to help you undo that, because to me, selling is simply a style of communication that increases the likelihood that the other person says yes. Selling is simply a style of communication that increases the likelihood that the other person says yes. So if you want to get more yeses in your life, study sales. It's a learned skill, and once you have the skill set, you'll have it for the rest of your life. Even if you're listening to me right now and you've resisted sales your entire career, I want you to open up to a whole new possibility of embracing sales. Here are some things that move the needle. If you're taking notes, you can jot this down. One thing that moves the needle in sales is preparation. That's a huge part of my philosophy. Do any of you follow NBA basketball? Steph Curry, he's the MVP last year and this year, and he has a pregame routine that he does every single time. And he's preparing to produce outstanding results. There's a great quote, and it goes like this: success loves preparation. Success loves preparation. And look, we can't prepare for everything. There's not enough time in the day. You have to make critical decisions about where you're going to invest your time. But if you'll prepare on the sales end, it can really up your income. It can make your marketing work. Do any of you either do paid ads or you want to do paid ads? Okay, paid ads is an awesome strategy. And if you can get your sales working, if it's not working currently and you get it working, then you can put more money into paid ads and really scale your business. So y'all with me that sales is an important thing to work on and prepare for? But it might be something you resist, right? So it can be a little bit challenging. Another thing, script out your presentation, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. Scripting your presentation, sequencing the order that your presentation goes in, and I've already mentioned that. Stories, that's one of your greatest immediate impacts to make your presentation more persuasive. You layer stories into your presentation. Here's one idea: get 7 success stories down if you have them. 7 clients you've helped or customers that they're successful with what you've shared with them, whatever your product or service is. Script out those 7, tell the same 7 for the rest of your career. It's new for the prospect, but it's not new for you. See, think about that. If you just put in time to get 7 stories down, and then you could tell those same 7 stories for the rest of your life. Okay? Your close, you want to really script out your close. Is there anybody here in the room you're uncomfortable when it comes to asking for the money? Anybody uncomfortable asking for the money? Okay, several of you. I want to give you a couple quick tips on how to solve that. If you're open to it, you can just solve it forever. What you do with the close is the same way kids learn a play. So I have 2 10-year-old daughters, and sometimes they're in a play. So they have a script, and they go to play practice, and they practice the script. They do role play, and they practice it on their own. So it's those 3 ideas combined. Idea number 1, you script out your close. You write your close down. Idea number 2, you practice it by yourself. Idea number 3, you role play it with others. You get the wording down, so it's just the next thing that you say in the script. We're not doing ad lib. We're not doing improv when it comes to the close. We know what we're going to say, when we're going to say it, how we're going to say it, why we're going to say it. And then the last one, I already covered this, is to have a clear outcome. Always be thinking, what's the next step that I want this person to do? And then you sell to the next step. So this is the sales process that I teach up here on the screen. And the key thing about what's on the screen is the idea of process, where you're following a step-by-step process in order to produce the results that you want. This is called the sales mountain. And there's 2 golden nuggets that I want to talk about on this particular slide. And one golden nugget is that it's sequencing. So it starts off there, lead generation, then appointment setting, then trust and rapport. That's in order that you would deliver an effective presentation. This concept is, I call it generic sales mountain, because I teach thousands of students the same process, but each of you in the room, yours might be a little different than that. So that's probably not going to be your sales process. I have to teach a generic process so everybody can understand the concept of process. Then you ask yourself, what's my sales process? That's the question I want you to ask yourself. What's the key things you need to cover in the order that you need to cover them in? That's the first golden nugget of this slide. The second golden nugget is that you can break down each step in the sales process and you can work on it by itself, like this idea. A chain is as strong as its weakest link. So think of the sales process as links in the chain. So let's just take one there, identify customer needs. So you could forget about everything else in the sales process and focus just on identify customer needs. And you could strengthen that one area. And tell me if this makes sense to you. If you strengthen, identify customer needs, it makes the entire presentation more persuasive. Does that make sense to you guys? So what if you did that for every step in your sales process? It's going to take some time to do it. But the rewards are extraordinary. A great quote from Jim Rohn is, for every disciplined effort, there are multiple rewards. For every disciplined effort, there are multiple rewards. You're in your chair right now because Josh is extremely disciplined. Okay, this event here, in my world, in the training business, this is not an easy thing to pull off. Putting 200, 250 people in a room and creating this extraordinary opportunity for all of you, that's because in Josh's world, in his business, he did this level of discipline. You guys get that? There is so many little details that he has got the sleeves rolled up, him and his team, that most entrepreneurs, they just don't do it. They just don't. Like, I'm laying out for you, if you do what's on the screen, you're going to make more sales. Period, end of story. If you actually worked on every step in your process and you looked at it by itself, link in a chain, and you said, how can I strengthen, identify customer needs? How can I make it better? How can I improve it? And you did that. That's a W. Edwards Deming idea, optimization. And you did that for every step in the sales process, you would make more sales. Let me just ask you guys, if you feel that that's true. If you broke down every step in your sales process and you worked on it with detail, how many of you believe that you would make more sales by a show of hands? Okay, so making more sales is predictable. I want to really drive that point home. Making more sales is something that any of you can do. Selling is a learned skill, and it is predictable. So we're going to talk about sales scripting, and I learned about scripting from my mentor, Dr. Moyne. It's the most profitable idea in sales that I know. I've made more money from this one tip than anything else I've ever learned about sales strategy, and sales ideas. Some scripting thoughts. I've made more money from this concept than any other idea. It's a different language. Scripting is. Like if you learned French or you learned Spanish. Scripting is a different language that anybody can learn with proper training. I think it's never been more important than right now to have a great presentation that closes. Especially with all that you're learning about getting your calendars full. Like, to make it all work, you want to obviously close those appointments that you're setting. $1 million ideas are going to be bouncing off the seminar walls here. I spent 21 years developing this technology. The roots of my scripting system come from Dr. Moyne. He's the person who mentored me on this and taught me this system. I've invested $30,000 in developing these concepts. This is a difference maker. Ultimately, that's what you want to create. That's a picture representation. Each tab there is a script. So ultimately, you have a binder with all of your key scripts. So with appointment setting and lead generation, that could be your templates, your customized templates that you use. For your phone sales, it's your phone scripts. If you meet with prospects face-to-face. How many of you do webinars? I'm just curious. All right? How many of you don't do webinars, but you could, just out of curiosity? Whoa, look at all the hands. Okay, now, I used to resist webinars. Why would somebody, if they could do webinars, why would they not do it? Resisting technology. Listen to me right now for just a second here. If you could do webinars and you're not, that could be one of the 10 best ideas of this entire 3 days. Because of the leverage that you get from doing webinars. You can do them one-on-one, save you the gas, having to get dressed nice, put your makeup on. You can just meet with the prospect over the webinar. Or you can do group presentations. How many of you are not doing group presentations, but you could? You're not doing group, but you could. Okay, you guys have to do it. You have to do it. I did a webinar yesterday. It took me about an hour. I had 21 sales in an hour. There is so much opportunity with webinars, and it's, I want to just give you a little motivation right now. The thought is to take action in the face of resistance. To take action in the face of resistance. In my own life, I've been exploring this a lot lately. And I coach for a living. You know, as Josh was sharing when he introduced me, you know, I'm with my clients like sleeves rolled up, and we make this thing happen together. Those of you that end up working with me, I'm going to be working with you one-on-one. We're going to have the sleeves rolled up, and we're going to make this thing happen. And what I've been observing is that a lot of times we get all these great ideas, and then we face resistance, and we haven't been trained this thought to take action in the face of resistance. We tend to resist the new. So on my cell phone here, this is my cell phone. And I have a flap, if you guys can see that. So it's like this, but I got a flap. And when I went to buy this case, the guy that sold me the case, this is a Tech 21. That's the brand, Tech 21. So I get the cell phone, and he's like, oh, you got to get a case. I go, yeah, I'll get a case. He goes, you got to get the Tech 21. And this is like the most enthusiastic cell phone case salesman in the whole world. He's so enthusiastic, and you got to get the Tech 21. I'm like, fine, okay, dude, I'll get the Tech 21. So he showed me one without a flap. And I said, okay, great, I'll get it. So we walk over, and we pull it off the display stand there. And he pulls it out of the case, and it has this flap on it. And I've never had a cell phone case with a flap, and obviously you can see the one I have now has a flap. And you know what I immediately said when he showed it to me? The original one didn't have a flap. He showed me this one with the flap. And what do you think my immediate thought was when he showed it to me with the flap? I don't want it. Without even thinking about it. I don't want it. Why didn't I want it? Because it's different. Because it's different. Now, I want to tell you what I've learned. It's silly, but it's profound. I looked at it, and I immediately resisted it. And then we looked to see if there's any other colors without the flap, and there weren't any good colors without the flap. And I said, I'll take the one with the flap. And the reason why I said that was because I recognized I was resisting it because it was different, and I wanted to embrace it. Take action in the face of resistance. Here's the deal. If you could do webinars and you're not, and you're waiting for the resistance to go away, guess what? It ain't going away. Certain things in business the resistance doesn't go away until you do it. And then when you do it, in a lot of cases, the resistance goes away because once the mind expands, it will never return to its original size. A great quote from Thoreau. This is a huge insight. Take action in the face of resistance. This is something why, I'm blown away by what he puts together. I'm doing what I'm doing on the sales training side, and I observe it. I admire what he accomplishes. And I look at that, and he somehow, some way gets himself consistently to do the detailed work that most entrepreneurs won't. And he takes action in the face of resistance. Do you know exactly what to say to get somebody to buy from you? Okay? Do you know exactly what to say to get somebody to buy from you? This is a type of script. This is called the disturbing question. So you want to consider, could I, meaning you, put a disturbing question into my script? In the Identify Customer Needs section of the presentation, on this one there, if you see midway up on the left-hand side, it says Identifying Customer Needs. There's an outcome for that section of the presentation. And it's to find a want, need, or problem that the prospect has that your product or service can solve. The purpose of identifying customer needs is you've got to find a want, need, or problem that the prospect has that your product or service can solve. So what a disturbing question can do, it's a type of probing question. It can help a prospect recognize that they have a problem. So if you're selling college planning and you're talking to a husband and a wife and say, do you have a plan in place right now to send your son to the college of his choice when he turns 18? And what do you think they might say? No. And that's a good no if you're selling college planning. It's a question designed to produce a no, to reveal to the prospect that they have a need. ways of using scripting. So if you choose to study sales scripting, there's many applications to it. So you can do it in phone sales, face-to-face sales, webinars, conference calls, front of the room selling if you do that, video, web copy, social media, and if you have an administrative person helping you with sales. Do any of you have like a sales support, appointment setter, anybody that helps you with the sales process? Okay, several of you do. So you can script them, which increases their productivity. It makes them more effective. Sales scripting conversation. What do you think of when you think of a script? Do you think most people embrace scripting or do they resist it? What do you think? That's right. Most people resist scripting because this is what they think of when they think of a script. Inauthentic, canned, rehearsed, mechanical. It's just not me, Eric. It's just not me. I don't do it that way. See, most people, prior to training with me, they have a resistance to scripting because that's what our culture trains us, that this is what scripting is. And if that's what I thought scripting is, I'd resist it too. So we're going to get into the definition of the script in just a little bit. It's actually the most important point of the entire training that we're going to do today. What would it feel like to have persuasive scripts that produce lots of sales? If you put the work in, you can have that feeling and know you're going to knock it out of the park. So I want to tell you a quick story and give you 3 golden nuggets. This is a story about a client that had huge resistance to scripting. Scripting works in any industry. It does not matter. He happens to be a photographer and a videographer, and he's totally resistant to selling. And when he started working with me as a client, some coaching came with it. And so he contacted me, and he said he needed an emergency coaching session. It's like a 911 for sales trainer, right? Like, I don't usually get like, Eric, I'm in trouble. I need a call. Like, I don't usually get that, right? It's like the crisis line. That was the kind of call it was. And so I got on the phone with him. I'm like, what's going on? And he goes, I'm about to lose my studio. Because his sales had dropped. He was doing a lot of business with real estate agents. He's up in Orange County, which is just not too far from here. And years ago, it's like everybody was a real estate agent. In fact, the highway patrol, if you got pulled over in Southern California, they stopped asking you for your driver's license. They started asking you for your real estate license. Did you guys get it? It was a joke. Anyway, back to the story. He's selling to realtors, photography and videography. Then the market shifted, and there was a thinning of the herd in the real estate industry. So a lot of realtors, they went into other industries. So they didn't need his video and photography services. So his business was on life support. And he's like, Eric, I'm about to lose my studio. I said, all right. So I get on the phone with him. I said, let me hear your close. And he goes, I don't have one. I go, well, that's a problem. Now, I'm not going to ask anybody to come up to the front of the room right now and like I'll hand you the mic and you can give your close to all of us. But is there anybody that might be a little bit uncomfortable if I actually I'm not going to pull you up here, but would that be uncomfortable for anybody? Yeah, he didn't have a close. Well, no wonder he wasn't making any sales. Selling is a very intentional style of communication that increases the likelihood that the other person says yes. It's all about preparation. It's about determining the outcome for that presentation and reverse engineering it. So in other words, if he wants to sell a video package or a photography package, I want him to know the package that he's going to sell and how he's going to explain it and how he's going to ask for the order at the end and be crystal clear on that. And he wasn't crystal clear. And that's a tough place to sell from when you don't have that level of clarity. And the good news is it's totally fixable. So I'm on the phone with him, and I said, all right, let me give you a close. And I just crafted a close for him. I said, okay, first you say this, then you say, and I just told him exactly what to say. And I said, now before I get on the phone with you for our next coaching session, I want you to go through this close with your wife 10 times. Can you do that? And he goes, yeah, I can do that. I said, great. A couple weeks pass, get on the call with him, and I said, did you do what I asked you to do? And he said, yes. I said, fantastic. What happened? He said, well, Before I met with my first prospect, to make sure that I had the close down, I practiced it 200 times. I said, fantastic. What happened? He said, when I met with my first prospect, I was so nervous because it was the first time I was meeting with a live prospect. Can you guys all picture that? Okay, guy, he's totally resistant to selling. He's got his new clothes. He's got it down because he's practiced it, but now he's having this like out-of-body experience because he's live with a prospect. You see, your brain can go on sensory overload. This can happen to us. First time you do a webinar, get some practice runs in because your brain could go on sensory overload. Kind of like learning how to drive a stick shift. If you ever learned how to do that, your brain goes on sensory overload. His brain went on sensory overload, and he goes, I goofed it all up. And I was like, oh, no. Well, what happened? He said they still bought from me because I was more clear than I'd ever been. I said, fantastic. Now, the next time he met with a prospect, he's probably still a little nervous, but not as nervous. Y'all with me? After 10 times a meeting with live prospects, he's like, I got this. I want you to think about what I'm telling you. Totally resistant to the ask in the presentation. He scripted it out. He practiced it. He role-played it. Did it about 10 times. Problem solved. And that's possible for you. Now, I'm going to tell you the rest of the story. And I didn't tell him to do this, but this is what he chose to do. He's selling $500 packages at that point. That was his core product. And he said, you know what? Now that I'm confident with selling, why don't I sell a different product to a more qualified clientele? So he started selling to small businesses doing between $5 and $10 million in annual revenue. And instead of selling a $500 product, he was selling a $5,000 per month video marketing package. He started selling $60,000 products on an annual basis. He moved into a larger studio in a better location and started hiring staff. This is a gentleman who was, I met him in a meeting just like this, totally resistant to selling. And it doesn't matter if you're a beginner like Scott or you're a seasoned sales pro. When you work on your sales game, when you work on the process, you're going to get better. And it's going to help you make more money, and it's going to help you make your goals and dreams happen. I'm just doing my best to help open up your thinking of what to work on, what to put your time into, because selling is something that's worth putting your time into. So this is the closing tips. You write it down. You role play it, you practice it. Who is scripting for? Anybody who wants to increase their close ratio. Make more sales, overcome sales resistance. Is the idea of scripting out your presentation, is this resonating with you guys? Okay? Are you seeing value, whether you choose to script it out or not? If you actually did it and you scripted out your various communications that you have, are y'all with me that would help you make more sales? Okay? It requires discipline. We got to just roll up the sleeves, and we got to put forth that effort. So I want to tell you a quick story about a public speaker that I work with, and her name is Rhonda Schur. And when I met her in a conference just like this, and she started working with me, but she still had resistance to scripting. And one day she contacted me, and she said, you know what, Eric, I've been resisting scripting, even though I've been a client of yours for a while, but I'm ready to start doing it now. She was selling $100 to $200 in gross revenue per conference call. We got her presentation scripted out. The very next time she did it, she did $2,500 in revenue. Typically $100 to $200. She had a dream to buy a car for her husband and pay all cash for it out of profits from her business. Within 6 months, this is just a regular woman, just a regular person, just like we all are. Within 6 months of scripting out her presentation, she bought that car for her husband with money she made from the increase in script writing. It was a $48,000 car. So I want you to have this thought in your mind. Scripting equals the income. It's the rocket fuel to make your business dreams happen, especially when you have a great system like what Josh is teaching you. All right, so your next golden nugget, I want to talk to you guys about storytelling. And I want to give you a framework of how to tell a success story, okay? It's a 4-piece system. Step number 1 is you're going to state the problem. So you have a client or a customer They bought your product or service, and they bought it, hopefully they bought to solve a problem. So here's the problem that the client or customer had prior to meeting you. So this is a photo here. This is a woman named Judy O'Higgins. She's the one there on let's see here. On your left is Judy. Judy happens to be in network marketing. My system works in any industry. It doesn't matter. The problem she had is she had never been professionally trained in sales before. Okay? So I'm role modeling for you what I want you to do. I'm giving you the framework, guys. Listen, you can use this on your very next presentation. Once you script this out, you tell those stories for the rest of your life. So here's the problem. Step number 2, what's the product or service that they bought? So Judy became a client of mine, and a client in my world, you're called a protege. So Judy became a protege. That was the product that she bought. So step number 1 is the problem. Step number 2 is the product or service that they bought. Step number 3 is the result that it produced. So the result that it produced for Judy is she was professionally trained on how to deliver an effective presentation. And it got her to number 18 in a company called Send Out Cards. They have 170,000 people in the whole company. She's number 18. I'm her secret weapon. Okay? So then it's the result. And then step number 4 is the benefit of the result. So the benefit of Judy getting to number 18 is she was able to retire as a counselor, which was what one of her goals was. So I don't teach people how to retire from their job. I'm a sales trainer. But my teachings produce that result for her. So problem, product or service number 2, result, benefit of the result. You guys all got it? Okay. How many of you with that instruction that I just gave you could take some of your success stories and you could craft a script? How many could do that? Okay. How many do I want you to do? What's my recommendation? How many of these stories? 7. Is that doable, guys? That's doable. And then you insert it in your next presentation. Now, what Dr. Moyne taught me is he said, Eric, what I want you to do is figure out the success stories you're going to tell when you're preparing. Okay? So if I have a presentation tomorrow, when I'm preparing today, I figure out, okay, which of my 7 stories am I going to tell? And then in what order? And the order is the sequence. That's one of the 5 most important words in sales. The order is the sequence. I'm teaching you how to prepare. This can make you a lot of money. So I want to tell you one other success story. This is of a real estate agent. So my system works in any industry. This is Kevin Hudaba. 2 years ago, before he started working with me, he made about $125,000 as a realtor. Last year, he made $205,000. So he made an extra $80,000. All the things that I taught Kevin about scripting for his listing presentation, his buyer presentation, he now has for how long? For the rest of his life. Okay? So I want you to think about this idea with your product or service. Is there a future benefit to your product or service? Meaning like this. You had lunch today, right? And so during lunch, whatever you ate for lunch today is not going to help you in 6 months. Because that meal that you had, it satisfied you today, but there's no future value to that meal. All right? But if you learn an idea here at the conference or many ideas, there's a future value. So think about that as it relates to your product or service. How many of you, your product or service, there's a future value to your product or service? Okay. Make sure that's clearly communicated in your script. So you got to look at your script. This is why you write it down. You got to look at it and go, if I was coaching you and I had your script in front of me and I would say, well, is there a future value to your product or service? And you go, yeah, there is a future value. I say, great. Show me in the script where you communicated that benefit. And you go, oh gosh, Eric's not in there. Okay? Here's one of the most commonly missed benefits in a script. One of the most commonly missed benefits is the consequences of not taking action. The consequences of not taking action. So you ask yourself, what are the consequences to my prospect if they don't buy my product or service? Then I want to know, if I'm looking at your script, where in the script is that? Show me where you covered consequences of not taking action. Okay? Do any of you sell in health and wellness? Health and wellness? Several of you in health and wellness, okay? That's a huge thing you've got to convey to them, right? If you're selling supplements, for example, and you're talking about the benefits of the supplements, but then we got to go into the consequences of not having, improved nutrition or not having the supplementation. And then you can use a script like this. You're selling $100 a month supplements, and you say, whether you buy my supplements or not, you pay either way. It's $100 a month. It's preventative maintenance. The most inexpensive way to maintain a car is preventative maintenance. You don't wait until your car breaks down to do preventative. You get the oil changed, right? You don't wait until you have a blown tire, hopefully. You get the tires fixed. You don't want to have a blood, right? And they go, yeah. That's for your notes. It's called connect the known to the unknown. Connect the known to the unknown. You give them something they can relate with. You're selling health and wellness, and you say, look, you maintain your car, right? Well, why would you maintain your car? Because you don't want it to break down, because that could be really costly. Well, you want to know what's really expensive? When your health breaks down. And sometimes it can break down where it's not reversible. So right now, you can spend the $100 a month, and you can take the supplements, or you can wait until something happens. So what do you say we move forward to those supplements? Bam, right? Now that script that I just rattled off, if you're in health and wellness, if that resonates with you, you insert that every time. And you can insert it before the price objection comes up. That's one way to handle an objection, by the way. You handle the objection before it comes up in the body of the presentation. Once you figure out how to handle it in the body of the presentation, you just say the same script over and over and over again, because human beings respond in. I knew you were going to say that. Because prediction is a form of. It's like magic, guys. It's not magic, though. It's just scripting. It's just scripting. There are language patterns that you can learn that increase the likelihood that the other person says yes. I'm a former cook at McDonald's. I was a bottom-producing salesperson, and I met Obi-Wan, Dr. Moyne. And I've asked myself, what if I had never met Obi-Wan? What if I had never met Dr. Moyne? What would I be doing today? And I thought, because now I'm doing what I'm doing because he taught me. I said, well, I'd probably be a manager at Olive Garden. I was a cook at McDonald's for 3 years. My second job, I did so well, I was literally rolling in dough. I was a dough roller at Round Table Pizza. So I was on track. It's like McDonald's, Round Table, Olive Garden. That's my destiny. My destiny. And then I met Dr. Moyne. And he taught me these techniques. And then I went from worst to first in 60 days. That's how quickly this can happen. What I can tell you, for those of you that do want my help, I have the most comprehensive script writing training program on the planet, bar none, no questions asked. It's all there. You do have to do the work. You got to put the work in. Okay, we're almost out of time. This is the most important slide of the entire presentation. It's the definition of a script. The definition of a script is words in sequence that have meaning. That's the definition. What that means is, if you're talking and making sense, you're using a script based on the definition. It doesn't say the definition of a script is words in sequence that have meaning as long as it's written down. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say words in sequence that have meaning as long as you've prepared it in advance. It just says words in sequence that have meaning. So let's go a little deeper with what does the definition actually mean. It means this. If you're talking and you're making sense, that's a script. So based on the definition, is winging it a script? It is, because you're talking and making sense. It's not a very good script, right? But it's still a script. So if you go, well, I don't want to do scripting, you're doing it anyway. You're doing it anyway. So it's all about preparation. The point I'm attempting to land with you right now is to really drive home the importance of preparation. And once you find something that works, you just do it over and over and over and over and over again. Here's a great script if you happen to be in a relationship. This is a great script. It could be a text. And you just text your spouse or significant other, and you just simply say this sentence. Is there anything I can do to help your day go a little bit better? Is there anything I could do to help your day go a little bit better? Something I text my wife almost every single day. I simply send her this text. I say, you are the most beautiful woman in the world. And I send her that text just about every single day. And I know that that's going to put a smile on her face. So scripting, it goes far beyond your business. It's really all about communication. How do you communicate to get the results that you want in your life? I stumbled across it because I met this gentleman, Dr. Moyne. Somehow, some way, the stars aligned and I met him. He's been in my life for the last 21 years. And he's taught me all these great techniques, and I love sharing these techniques. We've got a little bit more time here. Are you finding what we're talking about? Is this a valuable conversation for you guys? Fantastic. We're going to go a little deeper. I'm going to give you guys another golden nugget. You guys heard of Michael Gerber, E-Myth? Okay, a lot of people know about Michael Gerber. Okay, for your notes, this technique is called a convincer. This technique is called a convincer. A convincer is when somebody other than you makes the point for you. A convincer is when somebody other than you makes the point for you. So I'm quoting right out of E-Myth. You guys can go get the book. You can find this. I'm not paraphrasing. These are the exact words in the E-Myth. Things need to be sold, and it's usually people who have to sell them. Everyone in business has heard the old saw, 80% of our sales are produced by 20% of our people. Unfortunately, few seem to know what the 20% are doing and the 80% are not. Well, let me tell you. The 20% are using a system, and the 80% are not. A selling system is a soft system, and I've seen such systems produce 100% to 500% increases in sales in almost no time. What is a selling system? It's a fully orchestrated interaction between you and the customer that follows 5 primary steps. Fully orchestrated means prepared in advance. Okay? Then Gerber goes on to say, the 5 primary steps: identification of the specific benchmarks or consumer decision points in your selling process. I said that differently earlier on, and you might not have picked it up, but let me just check in with you guys. Gerber's saying that, but what's my version of identifying the specific benchmarks or consumer decision points? What do I call that? If you just go through your notes and you just keep saying stuff, eventually somebody will hit it. Stage selling, guys. Stage selling. Stage selling means sell the prospect to the next step. Okay? Consumer decision points, next step. Gerber and I were saying the same thing, just a different way. Then he goes on to say the literal scripting of the words that will get you to each one successfully, yes, written down like the script for a play. Gerber says, script out your presentation. Michael Gerber. I went, cha-ching, when I read that. I just made $1 million. And the reason I went, cha-ching, I just made $1 million is because now it's not just me saying it. Now it's Michael Gerber saying it. So when you find credibility like that, you bring that into your presentation, it makes it more persuasive. Do you guys get that? That is, but what's cool about this, once you find one of those, you just use it in every presentation. If you have a sales team, you teach it to them. That's called a convincer. What's on the screen here, when you start writing a script, you might think, oh, okay, I'm going to start typing. What's the first thing I say? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? And it's a little different. It's like if you were going to bake a cake, the first thing that you would do if you were going to bake a cake is you'd get the ingredients. So these are the ingredients of writing a persuasive sales script. Stories, probing questions, the offer, which is the close, objections, and benefits. And what you do is you start by making lists. You list all of the benefits of your product or service. You list all the key things that you need to cover in the close. The way you begin to write a highly persuasive close is you actually don't start writing the close. You just think, what do I need to cover in the close? Well, I need to cover the guarantee. So you write that down, guarantee. I need to cover what's included. You write that down, what's included. I need to cover the name of the product. I need to cover the method of payment. I need to cover the payment terms. If there's a bonus or an incentive for taking immediate action, I need to cover the bonus or incentive. So the way you craft a close, step number 1, you list out all of the key things you need to cover. Step number 2 is you put all those, I call them components of the close, in order to create a closing outline. So step number 1, you make a list of all the key things in the close you need to cover. Step number 2, you put them in order. That creates a closing outline. That's your sequence of the close. Step number 3 is each component, the way I teach it, is it's a mini script. So you actually don't write the close. You write a bunch of mini scripts that then form the close. And what this does is all of a sudden it makes it doable. It makes it doable. It takes this concept of sales scripting, which could seem like this really confusing thing, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, I could. Well, let me just ask you. How many of you could make a list of all the key things you need to cover in your close? How many could make a list? How many could put your list in order? Okay, then you just do your best and you write a mini script for each component. That's all it is. Like if you're talking the way somebody can pay you, I would say I accept all major credit cards, Visa, American Express, MasterCard, or Discover. The payment terms of my offer, it's a full pay of $895 or $300 down and $400 a month for 2 months. Those are mini scripts that are a part of the close. So script techniques. Baseline script is whatever you currently say. Your baseline script is whatever you currently say. I suggest you write down what you say. I suggest you write it down. And an easy way to write it down is, I bet every one of you has a smartphone. And on your smartphone, you have an audio recorder. So your baseline script, just speak it into your phone and then either transcribe it yourself or send off the digital file on Fiverr or wherever you get a transcription done for a few bucks. And now you got a written script. That's your baseline script, okay? The reason we want to have a baseline script is so we can then, number 3 there, persuasion engineer it. And so what you do is you look at each section of the script and you'd ask questions like, in probing questions, is this the most persuasive way for me to communicate this? Are there any questions that are missing? Are there any questions that are in there that don't belong? So we write down the baseline script so we can then persuasion engineer it. Reverse engineer, it means begin with the end in mind. Lifetime client map. Okay, that's the ultimate result. What's the step before that? Step before that, all the way back to generating a lead online. Selling a product, reverse engineer it. You put this sales strategy together, and you can just blow the doors off of your results. What we're really talking about here is very, very high-level sales strategy. Before I learned these techniques from Dr. Moyne, this was me before sales scripting, bottom producer, and this is me after sales scripting. So now I get to travel the world and come and speak to groups like you guys and find people that have an interest in learning these particular techniques at a much deeper level. Josh has a couple words that he wants to share before we go on our break. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Josh, and let's give him a big hand.
Great job, man. Thank you so much. Guys, the stuff that Eric just dropped on us was, I got a ton. I was sitting in the back the whole time, just soaking everything in. Round of applause for Eric one more time.